And hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing well today. Welcome to the Unseen Journey. We have an awesome guest today with, if I say it correctly, LCM Lainey. Is that correct?
I'm
Licensed,
a licensed marriage
licensed
and family therapist,
LMFT. Okay, cool.
LMFT.
LMFT. Got it now.
Correct.
If you are joining us on the Unseen Journey
Okay.
for the first time, do us a big favor. Reach down there, hit the like and subscribe button. While you're down there, you'll see a link to Operation Red Wings Foundation, who is our sponsor. They offer free retreats for military veterans and their spouses. We have individual male, female for the veterans. We also have the spouse retreat, couples where I team lead along with several other couples, and a family retreat. So, Lainey, I hope you are doing well today. Where are you coming to us from? Connecticut. Nice. So I imagine you have much different weather than I do. I'm in Florida, and it got cold here, and cold for us was like 50 degrees.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing too badly compared to other years. Bit warmer, yeah, for sure. I would say.
So do us a favor. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey into, I guess, what led you into sort of the counseling side of therapy.
So first of all, 3 years ago, I had a stroke. However, with the help of my partner, I'm doing very well. I see clients, I train therapists in my model. The only difference is I talk a bit slower, which may be a good thing. So, not bad. So, I've been in the field since '89, and I worked for a clinic. I worked for a psychiatrist, did all kinds of things. But now I'm home, working out of home and training out of home and all that. I created accelerated resolution therapy. Some people call it ART. Some people call it ART. And the way I developed it, the reason, of course, I want to help people, so does every therapist. But I took a class in what you may have heard of called EMDR. It stands for Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing. I took that class in 2007. And I love the eye movements that you do that may be similar to REM sleep and trigger some really good things. So I really love those. But the way that EMDR is taught is free association, like a dream. So it doesn't always get done, and some people leave upset. And so I did not really sort of like the protocol, though I like the eye movements. I do respect Francine Shapiro, who created EMDR, because she got the eye movements out into the world. Thousands and thousands. And she did it 30 years ago. I'm 15 years in. So what happened was, I changed the protocol to make it very directive and work better. And I went to see an EMDR supervisor because I thought I was doing EMDR. And she said, I don't want to slap your hand too hard, but I don't know what you're doing. It's not EMDR. So call it something else or do it my way if you want me to supervise you. So I drove home thinking about my results, that I could get trauma done in one session very often, and they were just done, no triggers. Ongoing things may take longer because they have secondary gains like substance abuse, but not much longer. It's very quick. So I thought, what should I do here? I don't like the EMDR free association. I can't even do it. I don't know how to do it. Wasn't really, explained well. So I said, okay, I'll call it something else. And then I took a bunch of names and put them on the kitchen table. And I said, well, I see accelerated. That means fast. We're fast. I see resolution. We resolve things. I see therapy. That makes art. And my friend said, but people will confuse it with regular art therapy. And I said, no, it's going to be really big one day. You'll see. And they will know what art is, because I had so much faith, maybe higher power, not being very religious, but having a higher power that was telling me to do this. You have to do this. So, I thought, well, when I do my therapy, you sort of draw it in the brain. So it sort of is art. You erase things, you do lots of stuff with the eye movements. So I called it art. And 2 years later, the therapist that told me it was not EMDR took my training. And she called me up and she said, I heard you have a great training. I'd like to take it. I said, you're the one who told me it was not EMDR. And she said, I hope I was nice to you. And I said, yes, you were. So basically, I got kicked out of EMDR for being radical, is what I say. And now, and we've been before the stroke, I went to so many Army bases to train them. I went to Walter Reed. I went to Fort Hood. I went to Fort Benning. I went to Fort Belvoir. And the head of Walter Reed's side scientist is trained in my stuff since probably 2011. And he's on a study, an RCT, which is the highest level of a study, supposed to be coming out shortly, but it's been 6 years. But head to head with CPT, cognitive processing therapy. And I believe it's going to be good. But we also have Mayo Clinic applying for their 5th grant. Now, they have a 5-year NIH grant for grief for caregivers to see if art can eradicate PTS before it even starts. The first time they're doing that with art, and it's 5 years. So that's very exciting. And the military in Canada is in the middle of a study, which I've worked with them on, to help the therapists that, know it a bit better. And I've trained people at Yale University, and they would like more trained. So I think we're in a very good spot right now. And we have maybe training in small groups, 9,000 therapists, and we have maybe 50 trainers going across the country training every week. So it's become a very well-known, large, wonderful therapy that can work very quickly and is pretty much different than talk therapy because we're in the side of the brain that can make big differences quickly. So I said a mouthful, but that's pretty much. I wrote a book called Too Good to Be True. If you put Laney Rosenzweig, it's on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, or Archway.com. It tells the story of art, some stories about art, and has some of my biographical info just because I wanted to. For example, I was a reporter for many years, and I put some pictures and things in there of my life too, because somebody may say, what crazy person developed this stuff? And that was me.
That's awesome.
Me. That's
awesome. So I have, you said a lot and I appreciate that. I have a lot of thoughts. So my short, quickest thought is I've worked with the Canadians too. They were a fun group, the Canadian military, during my time in service. My other thought real quick is just for our audience, I'm going to use a personal example because I've been through both EMDR and ART. Actually, I tend to call it ART because I have ran into the people where I'm like, you're going to do some art therapy. And they're like, you want us to draw some photos? And I'm like, no. So my quick repainting, this is one I mentioned, I think a few episodes ago. So I'll just re-mention it. So when I was a private in the Army, my mom was killed, right? The police deemed it vehicular manslaughter. And something, I just kind of stuffed, packed away decades, right, through my entire military service. And, as I started doing EMDR and then found my way into art therapy, it was like deal with the war traumas first, which made sense, right? We kind of worked with that layer. And then it was, okay, well, what else? Like, what else do we need to kind of work back through? Because my toughest holiday was always Thanksgiving. So my repaint with my mom. So my son is 9, Grant, and my daughter Lila is 12. My repainting is that it's coming up on Thanksgiving holiday. The doorbell to my house rings. I tell the kids to go answer it, see who it is. They open the door and it's my mom, and she's finally able to meet my kids, her grandkids, for the first time ever. So, and I think it's cool to kind of get that out there, because you mentioned sort of this repainting, right? This redrawing of the memory.
Yeah, rescripting.
There we go. Rescripting of the memory. Right. And that's exactly what I experienced. One thing I was curious about, and I don't know, I'm not fully read in on all the protocols. But with EMDR, as I remember, I was always having to talk out loud. And with art, I did not have to verbalize, especially when I was working on my military traumas. I didn't have to verbalize what it was I was walking back through.
Right. That's a big deal. For a therapist, it helps with compassion fatigue because you can see a lot of people. So, see, what the world may not really understand well is that the problem with triggers are images, not facts. So when you go through my treatment, you have the facts at the end so you don't lose the memory. But the facts don't hold emotion. It's the pictures. And with art, we can erase the pictures and replace them. Mm-hmm. So when the brain sees a good image, for example, my cousin had a big fear of snakes. And when she would see tree branches, they would look like snakes. She would freak out the same way. Wow. So I did art. She changed the snakes in her mind to something she liked. Monkeys.
Nice.
Okay. Snakes are gone in the mind for a picture, replaced by playful monkeys. Okay. So she went to India and she took a picture of a snake very close to her with a snake handler and sent it to me. She did not have no more over the top fear. Yeah. Art will not get rid of normal fears. Yeah. We should all be somewhat scared of snakes if you are not a snake handler. So she had the normal fear. She did not have the over-the-top hysterical fear.
Right.
And so what art does is normalize your trauma. When trauma occurs, it skips the prefrontal cortex, your intelligent side, and it goes directly into the limbic system, the amygdala, the part that holds the fear. So the brain has no time to process. You see the thing, you're freaked out. The brain has no time to think about it, goes right and gets stuck in the limbic system. What art does is to reverse that by seeing the trauma and getting rid of sensations for the trauma and images and re-scripting. Yeah. So the brain sees the new stuff, and then the brain has nothing to compare the bad stuff with, like a snake looks like a tree branch. I'll freak out. Well, now the snake doesn't look like a tree branch. When she thinks of a snake in that way, she gets a monkey. And her body reacts to the monkey, not the snake.
For sure. And going kind of back a little bit to, you talking about the study of working with caregivers, right? So yeah. Oftentimes, I always say like, hey, our spouses, our intimacy partner, not our accountability partner. However, life happens and there's still that feeling, that desire from your spouse to want to be able to help, to take care of you, right? So my story with my spouse, Kelly, and art is, I had started moving through my journey, EMDR. Then I had gone through some sessions art when I went out to my individual session with ORW Foundation, and came back, and I continued to work with an art therapist, Barry, out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And he's does work with the ORW Foundation as well. And then we went to the couples retreat, and that was the first time Kelly ever did art, right? Because in her mind as a spouse, well, she had never been to combat. She didn't have a trauma to relate to like I did with the loss of my mom. So in her mind, she had no trauma, even though she was living for many, many years with me and my PTSD. And so it was really cool because after she did her art session, and she did hers specifically on the feeling of guilt, because she oftentimes would feel guilty that, I was having a hard time, or I was, whatever, depressed, angry, you name it. And there was nothing she could do to help kind of relieve that or help get me into like a happy mindset. Right. It was really cool though. So at the couples retreat for ORW Foundation, she did art. After she did art, the conversations we were able to have to start to turn towards each other and come back together as a couple, it was night and day. It was like the coolest reset ever.
Right. So it does affect people around you. For example, and the example I give is someone's sleeping with their partner and they're having a bad nightmare about combat. So they are hot and they take their covers off and they throw it on their partner. Now their partner is hot. And then they get cold and they're upset with the dream and they pull their covers off and now the partner's cold. So they're going through the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Right.
We've gotten to a cool place now though, where, I think it's been about 2 months now, but I must have been having a really, really good combat related dream because I woke up when my butt hit the floor, and I had Kelly, I guess, woke up as I was combat rolling out of the bed. And when I woke up, my butt hit the floor and I was in a seated shooting position. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I had to get the hell out of the way of something. I don't remember what it was,
right.
but I did it." And so she was like, "Well, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then the laughter came, right? She was just like, "I can't believe you just like forward rolled out of the bed," right?
Right. You're acting it out because the REM can't really help. Now, I tell my therapist something that may alarm them, but what I really think is if REM could do what art does, we would not need therapists anymore, right? Because you'd have a dream, it would work, and you wouldn't need help.
Right.
But it doesn't work. It free associates. So EMDR calls it desensitization. I made a word up. Positivization.
Okay.
I wanted to make it positive, not just desensitize. We do that quickly. Then we go on to positivize.
Right.
I did write a paper on the difference between art and the EMDR. And if anybody wants it, all you have to do is email David at acceleratedresolutiontherapy.com. He also has a program where a therapist can give a free session through him for a veteran or first responder. And if you want later, he could tell you about it. And we're looking for funding for that too, because he takes zero money. All the money goes right to the first responder, veteran, active duty person, whatever. So it's a very good, worthwhile program.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And for our listeners, do us a favor real quick. If you haven't already done it, reach down there, hit the like, subscribe button. We're going to drop a bunch of this information into the description of this episode. So we'll have the contact information for David for those of you who are looking for resources. We'll also have the contact website for ORW Foundation. Please check us out. We're free as well to come through a retreat, and they are awesome. And art is the therapy modality used at these retreats. I would say I think it's really cool what he's doing because oftentimes, and we've talked about this on some previous shows, veterans are looking for that non-medication, tool. I'll call it tool, right?
Right.
Whether it's things like, I'm going to reach over here real quick, whether it's things like my Alpha Stim, or whether it's things like going and seeing a therapist to do art, all those kind of tools that you can bring to the table to help slowly decrease that. I will tell you from personal experience, I will never be off medication. However, reducing that medication, and like you said, it was a great word, normalizing, right? Normalizing that trauma so that this new version of normal that I'm living it's still a happy, full life, right? Like I'm still an active and engaged dad. I'm still married, beating the statistical odds somehow. Probably got to give all the credit to that one to Kelly. And I think it's just really cool, like to learn about the different resources that are out there that veterans can take and put in their kit bag. And, with my story, as I was explaining as well, it's equally as beneficial for the spouses. And I think that's cool that you explain, like, look, you might not be the spouse who went through the trauma, but if you're living with that spouse who went through the trauma, then you're experiencing parts of it too,
Right. I would say the partner actually can develop PTS, and we don't call it a disorder, so we call it post-traumatic stress. But the partner actually has it from watching the person go through it. Right. They develop their own trauma, which is watching the person go through it. And so one thing I tell people, you may not like the dentist, but if you go there, you remove decay, you put in a good filling. We remove the negative images that are keeping the trauma alive, and then we replace it with something the client wants. Client is always in control. We're just guides. Right. And I can do a trauma, like you said, without knowing what it was. So when I was in the hospital 3 years ago for the stroke, David said, there's somebody on the edge. Would you like to see him? So what happened was David watched the door so the nurses wouldn't come in. And I had this guy come from Mass to Connecticut to Harvard. And he was part of the Boston PD. And I did not know the problem. I just did the procedure. And then a few weeks later, they called and said, do you know what his trauma was? I said, no, I don't know. They said he was part of the first responders for the Boston Marathon bombing. Wow. And he could not go to the site. He couldn't even look at the site. But the day after I worked with him, he had his wife drive him there, and he walked all around with no sensation for it and was able to be there. And of course, he did feel good about it. You have the normal things somebody feels about it, but you don't have the over-the-top hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is dangerous. Vigilance is what you want. You don't want to be hypervigilant and shoot yourself in the foot. You want to be vigilant. Big difference. Yeah. Right? So we don't take away the edge, because some soldiers will say, what if you take away my edge? No, no, no. We're not taking away your edge. We're making you safer, because now it's in your intellectual side of your brain, not just the emotional knee-jerk reaction side.
For sure, for sure. And I think I want to point out two things with what you just said. The first is, you were helping that police officer normalize that experience of trauma. Although I imagine, right, and I don't know this for sure, but I imagine since he went down there, his wife drove him down there, it gave her some relief as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I know one of the hardest conversations Kelly and I ever worked through was actually talking about some of my experiences with losing soldiers in combat. And for a long time, that was a big like wall, right? That was like a barrier between us, where I thought, oh, I'm protecting her by not exposing her to my experiences, my trauma. Right. The reality was I was shutting her out. I was walling her off. And I think that brings in that idea I was talking about, where, she did art on those feelings of guilt within our marriage, because because she needed to release the fact that even though she was my spouse, she loved me, she wanted to do things to help me out. It just, she could not, right? It had nothing to
Right.
do with her or what she was doing. It had everything to do with my experiences, my trauma, and me going through that self-care journey. So I think those are two kind of neat aspects to kind of pull in for art and kind of highlight. And then I would say to the individuals who are kind of nervous about experiencing art and losing the edge, right? So I'm gonna name another kind of famous person, Brene Brown. Several years ago, before she was more or less a household name, she came to Fort Bragg. She came to JSOC, and she researches shame, fear, and vulnerability. And her group, started doing their program actually over at JSOC, and they would have operators, spouses, all the above. But as you said, the military originally was using EMDR and then started pulling in art. And I would tell anyone who's worried about losing their edge, adrenaline is something you actually want to control in combat, right? Hypervigilance is very bad. It's because those fine motor skills we need for, shoot, don't shoot. Where am I moving? What do I see? If our hypervigilance is way up, if our adrenaline is way up, our vision is like this. And if we control that and bring that way down and we're calm and we're steady and we're talking like it's a normal day, even though it's not, we still have all of this to us, right? So I think that's important to point out because I don't know, people don't know what they don't know. And I'm not sure how much that is common knowledge, I guess.
And I would tell you that for me, I calm somebody down and don't start till they say they're ready.
Nice.
Because the eye movements will get you calm just like a tranquilizer. They're very good when you do them the right way. Most EMDR people don't do the 8-phase model anyway of Francine Shapiro. They've all changed it anyway somehow. But there are things that I do that are different. For example, I'll do Gestalt. That means you go back and you talk to the people you lost in your mind, doing a good dream. Nobody wants to be remembered by their worst possible moment.
Right.
So you want to ask the person you lost, how do you want to be remembered? By the IED blast? Or when we had a beer in the cantina, right?
Nice.
And so that's what we do. We also use a ton of metaphor. And so I do metaphorical things. So you're not seeing the real problem sometimes. You're seeing a picture that you create to change. I do hit the problem straight on most of the time, but I can do a metaphor if you get stuck.
Nice.
And so that's a picture you create of how you feel, and that can be changed.
When you talk about the aspect of relaxing through the eye movement, it has been my experience on more than once after I'm going to say an intense or longer art session for me, that I'll go lay down and take a nap. In fact, I think my longest nap was like almost 4 hours.
Right. It's sleep improves. I had a psychiatrist when I checked in with the group that was training. I say hello. And he said to me, do you use beta blockers with art? I said, the eye movements are the beta blockers.
Yeah.
I don't need meds.
Yeah, for sure. And that was definitely my experience. The only other time, the only kind of other tool in my kit bag that's really allowed me to relax to that level, I guess I would say, and really just be able to go completely take a nap, completely decompress, honestly is my alpha stem. And that one took me a couple of days to kind of get to that mode. My story about that was I was at the individual male retreat for ORW Foundation. And it was the Saturday night after I had been using the alpha stem several times to get my brain to kind of figure out what it was, what was going on, what it was doing. And I fell asleep in the common room. And my retreat there was 11 of us. And never would I have ever fallen asleep around a group of 10 male strangers. Now, granted, that weekend I was also doing art as well. So there was that piece too. But again, it's kind of, for veterans, it's what are all these good tools that we can take, and how can we start to layer the good tools so that, like you said, this is normal for us. So how do we get normal to a place where we can still have a happy and full life? You know what I mean?
Right. And so when you do art, the past is in the past, and your brain can put it back where it's not going to do harm. But it needs help. You can't do it again when you sleep with REM, because that just is all over the place. So when you take that power and harness it and let the client fix themselves, come to their own conclusions with the help of right, left brain. When you do eye movement, you're engaging both sides of the brain, the intellect and the emotional side as well. So I'll tell clients, you know what? You're going to become smarter. Because when I do this session with you, you're going to engage both parts of your brain and let them weigh in to help you with the problem.
For sure.
So it's not just the intellectual side or just the emotional side that takes over. It's both. And that's part of why it works so well.
Yeah. And even at the family retreat, right? When I went through the family retreat with ORW Foundation, my daughter was, let's see, I think she was 10 at the time. And she was able to do like some mini art sessions, right? Because of trauma she had from dealing with daddy always being, the dark cloud in the storm, always being angry and upset, and her not being able to understand like what she was doing or not doing, which it had nothing to do with her. But she was able to do like an art mini session, which was really cool, because then that led to a talk therapy session with the clinician, myself, and my daughter. And that was a huge, huge breakthrough for us. I mean, it was so good, so healthy. I'm kind of curious, bringing up my daughter, and maybe you've had some feedback on this, maybe you haven't. I don't know. It's just an observation I've noticed. So now my daughter getting ready to turn 13, right? She's got all the hormones and everything firing. I've noticed that if we want to have maybe a conversation that carries a little bit more weight or a little bit more emotion with my daughter, we'll go for a walk, and then we'll make sure we're a little bit into the walk before we start the conversation. And I don't know if that is similar to some of that kind of like eye movement since we're walking, or if you've had any feedback on that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Francine Shapiro tells a story of walking in the woods, left, right, and scanning, and realizing she felt less upset. So I don't know. We don't know. There's no studies on walking, how that helps. The bilateral stimulation, maybe the leg right and left too. Well, there's not a lot really known scientifically. When I was working at the University of South Florida, when they did the first study, the person doing that study, Kevin Kipp, was starting to use measurements of heartbeat and different things with the body, because if you do art, the heartbeat slows down. I know, because when I used to go on the treadmill and do eye movements, the heartbeat would go slower instead of faster, because it does control the body that way, which is very interesting. Of course, we need a lot more study. And also because art is proactive. I know it's hard to believe, I'll say it anyway, but in the advanced training I do with therapists, I learned how to take dyslexia with trauma, do it in one session. I have video, and they read and understand.
Wow.
And so I have done it on a military retreat where I did it as a demo. So I figured out how to connect the brain in such a way that if they know how to read, but it's the trauma getting in the way, and I remove it and do a few other things. They can read and understand and write better too. So I have the actual video that shows how to do it when people take the training. But I can do different things. I've done ADHD, different things, because it's proactive and you can get in there and work with the brain instead of just that free association where you have one way to try to, say, go with that, go with that, go with that. So I'm not someone who says to a client, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you?" They're there with you because they don't know what they think.
Right, for sure.
So I'm more proactive that way, and that's how I still use the eye moves to create new things. I'm still doing interventions and metaphors, and it's so creative. And some clients leave and say, "That was so much fun," because it's fun when you create over the trauma and get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Even the worst. I had a guy who had to kill a child coming towards a tank, and he could not be around his grandchildren or children after that. And he had a session of art, and we changed in his emotional side what happened, though he had all the facts like you have, like you're hearing it now. But hearing it now is different than experiencing it, where you can't be around kids. So I did one session and he wrote me he's able to enjoy his kids now.
Nice.
And I've had that happen several times because, who wants that to happen?
Yeah.
You don't. But there is a way to fix it in the brain so at least it doesn't impede your life, that you can't live your life.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. And I just enjoy doing it. I don't have to do it now, but I do it because I enjoy seeing clients and watching them resolve things so quickly, and it can be a lot of fun. You can change a scene to make it funny, like palmetto bug phobia. I said, make it your favorite singing star. So it became Willie Nelson. It had the rap over its shoulder. It had the guitar. And she's laughing so hard, and laughter breaks up trauma.
Yeah.
So at the end of the session, and it was a demo I did, she said, what should I do if I see a palmetto bug? Should I kill it? She goes, but it's Willie. She goes, but it's dirty, so I'll just take it outside. Where she used to stand on the table and scream when she saw one, now she'll just normally have the normal response and just not be that kind of over the top fear.
Yeah.
And so we use humor whenever possible. And it works with even the worst things.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed working with the vets and the servicemen when I went to your retreat. I'd been out there years ago. I went a couple of times. And I remember there was a guy who said, I know you don't think it's a big trauma, but I'm a medic, and I cannot eat my wife's spaghetti anymore. And I loved her spaghetti. So what I did was, during the part where we make a change, I had him take himself in his mind to a spaghetti factory and see how the spaghetti was actually made and the sauce. He was able to separate spaghetti from brains.
Yeah.
And wrote me a nice text. Thank you so much. I just had a big bowl of my wife's spaghetti and it was so good. Like, that was a trauma. Whatever it is, it is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. I think for anyone out there who has not experienced art, by all means, if your modalities you're used to are talk therapy or even EMDR, as an individual who's gone through all those modalities, I will tell you the one that has helped move me forward in terms of normalizing my life the most is art, right? A side effect that I noticed, a cool positive side effect I noticed, is sometimes, depending on the trauma I was working through, as I was releasing those emotions, re-scripting, repainting that memory, I would have some literal body pains that would relieve themselves out of that session. And I was like, man, that's super cool to think.
Yeah, physical.
Yeah.
It does take care of a lot of physical pain
Yeah.
because that may be based on a bad image that the
Right.
brain held on to.
Right.
And one thing I'd like to add, if it's okay,
Please.
is if you go to my web, www.artworks.now.com, on the top, there's you can click on up there on the top left, it says free intro.
Mm-hmm.
Every fourth Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, I do a free intro. You see clients after a session.
Nice.
I talk about the brain, how I think it works, and I do a Q&A. Now, therapists can join, but clients can join. Anybody interested in seeing this and asking me questions can join the free art intro that's on the web. The link is way at the top left. It just says free intro. Sign up. You'll get the link. And people love it. I get usually half of people who sign up. So I had 100 sign up last month alone, and we had 50 on that watched and asked lots of questions. Because this is like my book title, Too Good to Be True. People don't believe it. You're going to fix my trauma in one session?
Yeah.
And some people go, are you minimizing it? No, I'm not.
No.
I'm just telling you there is a way to fix it by erasing images that we do.
Yeah.
So it's truthful because I've helped so many people over the 15 years, and I have my therapist write me every day, thank you for this modality. You wouldn't believe the relief my client had today.
Yeah.
I get that all the time, and I love that. And that people want to train. I want to spread it. I want to train. I had a reporter ask me once, what's the first thing you thought of when you developed art? I said, and this is true, don't get hit by a car, because I was worried I couldn't pass it on. I didn't want to be the only one that knew how to do this. And so that's what I said. And then they go, well, what's the best thing about art? It works.
Yeah.
If it didn't work, I even want to do this.
Yeah.
It would be, especially I had the stroke. Would I want to do talk therapy? No. Would I want to do something that doesn't work?
Right.
No. It works so well, I'm just kind of forced to do it because I know it helps.
Yeah. Well,
no, it's just fun.
I will definitely say I'm a huge fan and appreciative of art. It has helped myself, my wife, and my daughter, and indirectly my son. So been a very positive game changer for my entire family.
I'm so glad. And again, David, if you're a therapist, you want to train, you want to give away a free session, it's David at acceleratedresolutiontherapy.com, and he'll tell you how it works. But I love that fact that they can come in and try a session, no charge.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll add all this information in the description. Real quick before I kind of talk about that piece, I want to ask you a question, but I want to give you a chance to think about it, right? So this is a question that's become kind of a staple on the show that we like to ask our guests that we have here. And it's if you could get into a time machine and travel back in time and go see young Lainey, what piece of, advice or just thoughts or whatever would you kind of, give her, right? And just think about that for a second. And while you're thinking about that, everyone else, our listeners, do us a favor, reach down there, hit the like and subscribe button. The Unseen Journey is coming to you every single week, brought to you by ORW Foundation. While you're down there hitting the like and subscribe button, do us a favor, leave us a comment, drop a question even. We would really appreciate the engagement. We will have the links and emails in the description for this show for Dr. Lainey and David and ORW Foundation. So you'll be able to find all that information down there. So, Lainey.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? You're getting into a time machine. You're going back in time.
Right. So first of all, I'm a licensed
Oh, that's right.
family
I said it
therapist.
again. I'm sorry. That's my
I'm not
fault.
a doctor.
That's my fault, chat.
Yes.
That's my fault, chat.
So I'll tell your listeners the only people you can call a doctor are psychiatrists, and we have APRNs too that give meds and so forth. But all the rest of us are just licensed therapists.
Right.
So when I put some of this in my book, but when I was little, I was very depressed. I had no idea why. Now I sort of have a sense of why and how the family was structured. I had the eating disorder. A doctor put me on Valium. I got addicted. I had a lot of things. I married an alcoholic and all that. So if I could go back to very early Lainey, and if I could do art with her, I would give her the support she really craved back there. But I would also say to her, I'm your future self. Hang on, because you're going to develop something that's going to help so many people. Just hang in there. You have to wait and try to enjoy your life one day at a time. People who are anxious are in the future or the past. They're not in the moment. And the only time you can enjoy anything is in the moment. You can't enjoy it in the future. You're not there. You can't enjoy it in the past, or even, getting upset about the past does nothing. All the past is a bad dream because it's not happening. So if it's a bad dream, you can have a good dream. And I would just tell that little Lainey, just hang on and just enjoy what you can about every day and put on your rose colored glasses that I used during the therapy and see what you can like during the day, even if it's simple and something to enjoy, looking at a tree and saying, that's beautiful. I'm happy. Label your happy moments and just hang in there because you'll be okay. That's what I would say to her.
That's awesome.
You get emotional when you think about your earlier selves,
Yeah, for sure.
and what they want. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to be me now. I wish I was younger because I'm 71. Because I want to see this really grow and grow. But I'm so happy a day at a time to enjoy everything about it. It's just wonderful.
That's awesome. Well, Lainey, thank you so much for being on the show. On behalf of the Unseen Journey and ORW Foundation, this has been fun. It's been a great show, and I think your message really powerful for everyone. So really appreciate it. Thank you again. To our
thank you. Yeah, thank your listeners. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and to our audience, do us a favor. Tune in this week, right? Go back, catch up on some episodes, hit the like and subscribe. On behalf of ORW Foundation and the Unseen Journey, I'm your host as always, Guy, and we'll see you again.